We are living in a time where silence has almost disappeared. The world has become loud in every possible way, not just loud with sound, but loud with expectations, opinions, pressure, comparison, and constant stimulation. From the moment you wake up, your mind is already occupied. Messages, news, responsibilities, fears about the future, regrets about the past. And in all of this noise, many people quietly begin to feel something is missing. Not because Allah has stopped speaking, but because the heart has stopped listening. Allah's message has never been absent. Guidance did not end with revelation. It continues in how Allah interacts with our lives every single day. The issue is not a lack of divine communication, it is a lack of attention. Psychologically, when the mind is overstimulated, it loses its ability to reflect. Spiritually, when the heart is constantly distracted, it loses its sensitivity. This is why people can be surrounded by blessings and still feel empty. The heart needs moments of stillness to recognize truth, and without stillness, even the clearest guidance feels distant. Think about how people treat important conversations. When something truly matters, you lower your voice, you remove distractions, you give it your full presence. Yet when it comes to Allah, we often expect clarity while multitasking, guidance while scrolling, peace while rushing. Then we wonder why the heart feels unsettled. Allah's message calls consistently, but it calls the heart that is willing to pause, not for hours, not for perfection, sometimes just for a few sincere minutes. Philosophically, this tells us something profound about human nature. The problem is not ignorance, it is neglect. Most people already know what is right. They know prayer matters, honesty matters, patience matters, gratitude matters. But knowing without listening turns knowledge into noise. Allah reminds us not because He needs our attention, but because we need His direction. When the world becomes your primary reference point, confusion becomes inevitable. When Allah becomes your reference point again, clarity slowly returns. There is also a deep psychological relief in realizing that you don't have to respond to everything the world demands from you. Not every opinion deserves your energy. Not every expectation defines your worth. When you listen to Allah, you begin to filter life differently. You stop reacting to everything and start responding with intention. That shift alone restores peace. It grounds the anxious mind and gives the restless heart a sense of purpose. And here is something powerful. Allah does not shout over the noise of your life. He waits for you to quiet it. That waiting is mercy. It means guidance is not forced, it is invited. The moment you choose to step back, even for 10 minutes, you create space for perspective. In that space, the heart remembers who it belongs to. The mind remembers what truly matters. The soul remembers that it was never created to chase the world endlessly, but to be guided through it. So when life feels overwhelming, don't assume Allah is distant. Ask yourself a more honest question. When was the last time I truly listened? Not rushed words, not distracted prayer, not half-hearted reflection, but real attention, because the guidance you are searching for may already be reaching you, waiting for a quiet heart to receive it. Just 10 intentional minutes can reconnect you to the one who has been calling all along. Are you willing to pause and listen? Many people assume that Allah only speaks through extraordinary moments, miracles that shake the earth, events that are impossible to ignore. But for most of us, Allah's message comes quietly, woven into the ordinary fabric of life. It arrives in moments we often rush past, dismiss, or fail to recognize. And this is where the real test lies, not in whether Allah is communicating, but in whether we are attentive enough to notice how He does so. Psychologically, the human mind is trained to look for intensity. We associate importance with drama, meaning with magnitude, yet Allah's wisdom often works in the opposite direction. He speaks through subtle shifts rather than sudden shocks. A verse you have read many times before suddenly feels personal. A conversation you didn't plan offers clarity. A door closes, and at first it feels painful, until you realize it protected you from something you couldn't see. These are not coincidences, they are invitations to reflect. Philosophically, this teaches us humility. If guidance only came through overwhelming signs, there would be no room for growth, no exercise of awareness. Allah honors the human intellect by allowing us to engage with life thoughtfully. He places signs within our daily experiences and leaves space for us to connect the meaning. That connection transforms passive belief into conscious faith. You don't just believe because you were told. You believe because you have witnessed Allah's presence in your own life. Often, the moments we ignore are the ones that shape us most. The discomfort that pushes you to change, the delay that teaches patience, the loss that reorders your priorities. We are quick to label these experiences as interruptions, when in reality they are redirections. Allah is not always removing things from your life as punishment. Sometimes He is making room for something better, something safer, something more aligned with who you are meant to become. There is also a psychological resistance we carry. We prefer clarity that requires no effort. We want answers without reflection, relief without growth. But Allah's message often requires us to slow down and interpret. When you reflect, you move from reacting emotionally to understanding purposefully. This is where emotional maturity and spiritual awareness meet. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is Allah teaching me through this?" Listening to Allah in subtle moments also changes how you view time. You realize that nothing is truly wasted. Even mistakes, when reflected upon, become lessons. Even pain, when understood, becomes meaningful. This doesn't make hardship easy, but it makes it bearable. It gives suffering a direction instead of letting it become despair. That shift alone can heal parts of the heart that have been silently breaking. And notice this, when people ignore these quiet messages, life often repeats the lesson, sometimes louder, sometimes more painful. Not out of cruelty, but out of mercy. Allah wants you to understand not to be broken. The more attentive you become, the gentler the guidance feels. Awareness reduces resistance, and resistance is what makes life feel heavy. So begin to pay attention to the feelings you keep suppressing, to the reminders that keep returning, to the moments of calm after difficulty. Allah may already be answering the dua you keep repeating, just not in the way you expected. His response might be hidden in the very thing you almost ignored today. If you learn to listen in the small moments, you won't need to wait for life to shout, because Allah has been guiding you quietly all along. One of the most damaging assumptions people make in times of difficulty is believing that hardship automatically means Allah is displeased with them. When life becomes heavy, when doors close, when pain lingers longer than expected, the mind quickly jumps to conclusions. What did I do wrong? Why is this happening to me? But this way of thinking often reveals more about our understanding of Allah than about our situation. Struggles are not always signs of rejection. Very often, they are forms of communication. From a spiritual perspective, ease does not necessarily mean closeness, and difficulty does not necessarily mean distance. If hardship were proof of Allah's displeasure, then the most beloved people to Allah would have lived the easiest lives, and history tells us the opposite. The lives of the prophets were marked by loss, rejection, fear, and long periods of uncertainty, not because Allah abandoned them, but because Allah was shaping them. This reframes struggle entirely. It moves hardship from being something to resent into something to understand. Psychologically, pain forces attention. When life is comfortable, we rarely stop to question our direction. We continue on autopilot. Struggle interrupts that pattern. It demands reflection. It exposes our attachments, our fears, and our false sense of control. In that sense, hardship becomes a mirror. Allah allows you to see yourself more clearly, not to humiliate you, but to refine you. What feels like breaking is often the process of rebuilding at a deeper level. There is also a profound lesson in how trials communicate priorities. When something is taken away, you suddenly realize how tightly you were holding it. When a plan fails, you recognize how much of your trust was placed in your own calculations. Allah does not remove things randomly. Sometimes He removes what you rely on, so that you return to the one you forgot you were relying on all along. That return is not a punishment, it is mercy disguised as difficulty. Many people ask Allah to change their situation without considering that Allah may be changing them through the situation. This is where listening becomes essential. If every trial is treated only as suffering, its message is lost. But when hardship is approached with awareness, it becomes instruction. Patience is not learned through comfort. Gratitude is not learned through abundance alone. Reliance is not learned when everything is under control. These qualities are taught through moments that stretch the heart and challenge the mind. Philosophically, this challenges our definition of success. We often measure success by outcomes, results, achievements, stability. Allah, however, measures success by growth, who you become in the process. A person who emerges from hardship with humility, empathy, and deeper faith has gained something far more valuable than what was lost. This is why some people go through ease and grow distant, while others go through pain and grow closer. The difference is not the trial, it is how the message is received, and it's important to say this clearly. Hardship does not mean you should accept injustice or remain passive. Listening to Allah does not mean surrendering effort. It means aligning effort with trust. You do what you can while understanding that the outcome is part of a larger wisdom you may not fully see yet. That balance protects the heart from despair and the mind from arrogance. So when you are tested, don't rush to label it as punishment. Pause and ask a better question. What is Allah teaching me here? Because once you understand the lesson, the trial either lifts, or it transforms you so deeply that its weight no longer breaks you. The struggle that brings you closer to Allah is not a loss. It is a message worth listening to. There is a common misunderstanding that holds many people back spiritually. The belief that change requires dramatic transformation, that closeness to Allah demands perfection, or that guidance only comes after everything in life is in order. This mindset quietly paralyzes the heart. People wait for the right moment to return, the right version of themselves to begin, or the right circumstances to be sincere, but Allah has never asked for perfection. He has always asked for honesty. 10 minutes of sincerity can outweigh hours of routine performed without presence. This is not a poetic idea, it is a profound spiritual principle. When the heart is fully engaged, even briefly, it realigns the inner compass. Psychologically, focused attention has transformative power. A distracted mind resists change, but a present mind opens itself to insight. When you sit with Allah sincerely, even for a short time, you interrupt the patterns that keep you stuck, overthinking, guilt, fear, and self-blame. Philosophically, this teaches us something essential about intention. Allah looks at the direction of the heart, not the speed of the body. Many people feel unworthy of turning back because they believe consistency must come before sincerity. In reality, sincerity is what creates consistency. One genuine moment of reflection can soften a heart that has been hardened for years. It can restore hope to someone who thought they had drifted too far. That is not weakness, that is how mercy works. Consider how people change in other areas of life. A single realization can alter a career. One honest conversation can save a relationship. One moment of clarity can break a destructive habit. Why then do we assume spiritual change must be slow and exhausting? Allah designed the heart to respond quickly to truth. The barrier is not time, it is resistance. When resistance drops, even briefly, guidance enters with ease. This is why small acts done with presence carry immense weight. a quiet dua whispered with sincerity, a few verses of Quran read with reflection rather than speed, a moment of silence where you admit your need for Allah without defending yourself. These moments recalibrate your inner life. They remind you that Allah is not waiting for you to impress Him, but to return to Him. There is also a deep psychological relief in realizing that Allah's door does not require you to arrive whole. You come as you are, confused, tired, hopeful, broken, and that honesty itself is an act of worship. Many people avoid turning to Allah because they feel inconsistent, but inconsistency is part of being human. What matters is not that you never fall, but that you never stop returning. 10 minutes today can become a habit tomorrow. A habit becomes a direction becomes a transformed life, and understand this clearly. Sincerity does not mean emotion alone. It means intention aligned with effort, even if the effort is small. When Allah sees a servant take one step with truth, He opens paths that were never visible before. This is why guidance often follows action, not the other way around. You don't wait to feel ready. You begin, and readiness grows along the way. So don't underestimate the power of small beginnings. Don't dismiss brief moments of connection. They are seeds, and seeds, when nurtured, reshape landscapes. Just 10 sincere minutes can redirect a lifetime, if you choose to begin instead of waiting. One of the quiet burdens many people carry, often without realizing it, is the constant need to be seen, accepted, and approved by others. It shapes decisions, fuels anxiety, and drains emotional energy. Much of our stress does not come from what we are facing, but from how we imagine others are judging us while we face it. When a person is disconnected from Allah, the heart naturally looks elsewhere for validation. But when you truly begin to listen to Allah, something profound shifts. You are freed from the exhausting chase for everyone's approval. Psychologically, the need for external validation is rooted in insecurity and fear of rejection. The human mind seeks safety and belonging, and when that belonging is unstable, anxiety follows. People change themselves to fit expectations, silence their values to avoid criticism, and measure their worth by reactions they cannot control. This is a fragile way to live. The moment approval is withdrawn, peace disappears. Allah's message interrupts this cycle by offering something far more stable: recognition that does not fluctuate, acceptance that does not depend on performance, and worth that is not negotiated with people. When you listen to Allah, you begin to internalize a different reference point. You realize that being seen by Allah is not a concept, it is a reality. Allah knows your intentions, your private struggles, and the effort you make when no one is watching. This awareness reshapes motivation. You start asking better questions. Is Allah pleased? Is this sincere? Is this aligned with truth? These questions bring clarity where social pressure brings confusion. Philosophically, this shift restores freedom. A person enslaved by people's opinions is never truly at peace. Their identity becomes reactive, shaped by applause and criticism alike. But when Allah becomes the central reference, the heart stabilizes. Praise does not inflate you, and criticism does not destroy you. You can accept feedback without losing yourself, and disagreement without losing dignity. This is not arrogance, it is grounding. Listening to Allah also teaches balance. You don't become careless about people, nor do you withdraw from society. You simply stop living for it. You still act with kindness, integrity, and responsibility, but yourself. Worth is no longer dependent on being liked. That distinction is powerful. It allows you to speak truth without aggression and remain silent without fear. It gives you the courage to do what is right even when it is unpopular. There is immense psychological relief in letting go of this burden. The mind becomes quieter, decision-making becomes clearer, regret decreases because choices are no longer made to impress, but to align. Even mistakes become easier to process because you are accountable to Allah, not humiliated by people. Repentance becomes personal, not performative. Growth becomes sincere, not strategic. And consider this deeply. People's approval is limited and inconsistent. Today they praise you, tomorrow they forget you. Today they support you, tomorrow they misunderstand you. If your peace is tied to something so unstable, it will always be fragile. Allah's acceptance, however, is constant and vast. It is not withdrawn because of a bad day or a flawed past. When you turn to Allah sincerely, you are already accepted in the most meaningful way. This realization changes how you walk through life. You move with quiet confidence, not loud assurance. You become less defensive, more intentional. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily, and most importantly, you stop exhausting your heart for reactions that were never meant to define you. When Allah's approval becomes enough, the noise of people fades, and peace finally has room to settle. One of the greatest misconceptions people carry is the belief that once they have drifted far enough, they are somehow beyond return. Time passes, habits form, mistakes accumulate, and slowly a quiet thought settles in the heart. I'm too far gone. This thought is not just inaccurate, it is dangerous. It convinces people to stop listening altogether. Yet Allah's mercy directly challenges this illusion. A heart that is willing to listen, even after years of distance, is never lost. From a spiritual perspective, guidance does not begin with perfection. It begins with awareness. The moment a person feels the discomfort of distance, the moment they sense emptiness despite having what they thought they wanted, that is already a sign of life in the heart. A dead heart feels nothing. A living heart questions, aches, and searches. Allah places that restlessness not to torment you, but to draw you back. That restlessness is not a failure, it is an invitation. Psychologically, people often confuse guilt with hopelessness. Guilt can be productive when it leads to reflection and change. Hopelessness, however, freezes the soul. Shaitan thrives on this confusion. He convinces people that because they fell repeatedly, their effort is meaningless, but Allah does not measure you by how many times you fall. He looks at whether you are willing to rise again. Listening to Allah breaks this cycle of self-condemnation and replaces it with responsibility grounded in mercy. Philosophically, this teaches us something profound about the nature of return. Returning to Allah is not about going backward, it is about realigning forward. You don't undo your past. You redirect your future. Every sincere pause, every moment of reflection, every quiet acknowledgement of need is movement toward guidance. The heart does not need to be clean to turn back. It turns back to be cleansed. There is also a deep comfort in knowing that Allah's door does not close with time. Human relationships often expire. Opportunities pass. Trust breaks and is not restored. But Allah's invitation remains constant. The heart that listens even briefly is met with guidance. Sometimes that guidance comes as peace. Sometimes it comes as clarity. Sometimes it comes as strength to let go of what is harming you. But it always comes. And notice how Allah does not demand dramatic declarations. He does not ask you to announce your return or justify your past. He asks you to listen, to reflect, to acknowledge truth when it reaches you. This is why even a small moment of sincerity can feel transformative. It's not because the moment is extraordinary, but because the heart is finally receptive. When the heart listens, guidance finds a place to settle. This understanding removes despair from the equation. You stop measuring yourself against others. You stop assuming that guidance belongs only to the consistent, the disciplined, or the outwardly righteous. You realize that guidance belongs to the sincere, to the one who pauses, to the one who admits need, to the one who listens, and this is perhaps the most hopeful realization of all. No matter where you are, the path back does not begin somewhere else. It begins exactly where you are standing, with a listening heart, with honest reflection, with the courage to turn inward before turning away, because the heart that listens is already on its way home, and a heart on its way to Allah is never truly lost.